Well, hello there, JW Strugglers, and you guessed it, it's time for interviews, and we are interviewing the mysterious, the interesting, the talented Brock Talon today. He has written his second book, Escape from Paradise. Now, you probably remember Brock and I talked about, I don't know, what was it, a year and a half, 2 years ago, Brock?
Yeah, coming on 2 years.
Wow, time flies when you're having fun. Thanks for coming back on JWStruggle.
Thanks for having me, Eric. I am absolutely thrilled to be here.
Of course you are. So hey, look, listen, I started reading this book. It was an easy read. It was easy like Sunday morning. There's a lot of funny stories. Yet again, you use humor very effectively in the book, and I appreciate that. I made some sticky notes, some comments in here, but let me just get things started and ask you this question. What is this new book about?
Well, the new book, Escape from Paradise, subtitle, Leaving Jehovah's Witnesses in the Watchtower After 35 Years of Lost Dreams, is just that, my whole life. So the first book, Journey to God's House, was about Bethel. I realized for some that's a bit of a esoteric topic, and not everybody was interested in that as much as they wanted to know more about my life, and they wanted more of a memoir. So Escape from Paradise is about a little boy's struggle from growing up, being in the so-called truth, going to Bethel, coming back disillusioned, and what he did afterwards, and finally where he is now.
Right. Well, I think you succeeded on those counts. And, I'd like to just share a paragraph from the prologue, right near the beginning. When I got the book, I get home, I'm reading it, and I come across this right here on page 7. It said, "Some of the things I will describe herein were so distressing to me, I found that I had trouble admitting to myself that they actually happened at all. There are things that I have never related to anyone, until now, that is. I feel that the time has come for me to speak out, for my sake as well as for the sake of those whose lives mirrored mine." And when I read that paragraph, Brock, it really struck me. I just thought, wow, I can relate to that.
Good. I'm glad.
Yeah.
And that kind of tells my motivation in a way. I had to get stuff off my chest. So I think both of my books were primarily me unloading my junk and funk and digging down into, who I was and what happened to me and admitting things. And then hopefully that would help others too.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, did you just say junk and funk?
Junk and funk.
I like that. Okay, so look, I'm sure people are going to be asking you this question, then why write a second book at all? I mean, didn't you get it out of your system in the first one?
I thought so, and when we interviewed the first time, I thought I was done. As you know, I'm an accidental author. I never planned on being an author. I'm just a guy, and I started posting on a JW site about Bethel stories, and that ended up turning into a book, mainly because, a lot of people asked me if you put it into a book, and I thought, eventually, why not? So I thought I was done, but then the reception was very good, but the only, probably, I wouldn't say negative side, but the only homework for me was to tell more. So the constant thing I got from even those that loved the book was it wasn't enough. It ended too soon. They didn't know why I went there, what was my motivation, what made me sick, what happened to me when I left, how did I leave the Jehovah's Witnesses, what am I doing now? I got those questions a lot. And I thought, well, maybe I need to write another book. So I didn't think I was going to write a whole book, but I started answering it piece by piece, and it just ended up being a book.
It makes sense. Now, here's another little snippet. This is an example of the way I like the way you word things. Like you're talking about all the different colored books. Remember, all the publications used to be, orange and green and red, and you say the witnesses would pore over these colorful publications at their book study meetings like zombies drooling over brains. I like stuff like that. I mean, it just makes it fun. It's these great word pictures. But let me ask you, is this a sequel? I mean, is that what you would call this?
Well, some might, because it's a follow-up book. So there's Journey to God's House, and then Escape from Paradise. One tells where I'm coming, and the other where I'm going, I guess. But it's not a sequel in that you need to have read the first book. So like a lot of sequels, if you don't read the first book or see the first movie, then you're lost. And I wanted to make sure that Escape from Paradise was a book all on its own. It's good on its own. You can have to have read the journey to understand it and follow it. In fact, you can read them in either order. So it's not really a sequel in that way. And it's also not a sequel chronologically. Journey to God's House is just about Bethel. It's a one short period of my life, whereas Escape is about my whole life. So if you put it chronologically, it's a prequel and a sequel. So it doesn't really fit a handy definition of sequel. But if you define sequel as a follow-up book on the same subject, then I guess it is.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. That makes sense. Now, is that to say then that the first book and the second book are kind of the same, or are there differences there?
Well, I'm getting comments on just how different they both are, and that was kind of purposeful. Escape is a little bit more serious, so I do have the humor, but I was in a little bit more serious frame of mind when I wrote it. And it's a longer book. It's actually more of a real novel length. Journey was a little bit on the short side, and people mentioned that they wanted more. I don't think they're going to read Escape and think I need to read a whole bunch more. Maybe I had one person say that, but it's a longer book. And another thing, it's a little bit more meaty. So when I want to talk about a particular topic in my life, then I back it up with Watchtower quotes, which I didn't do in Escape. I wanted to prove a point with their own material that what was going on in my life really happened. And so I had to do that. So it's different in that way. And an example of that would be, if I'm talking about my parents arguing over wallpapering the kitchen. There was a story called Wallpapering the Titanic. And my dad actually got mad at my mother about the fact that she wanted to update the kitchen and wallpaper it. And my dad said that was ridiculous because Armageddon is coming any minute. And we're going to be getting better, newer houses from the dead worldly people anyway. So why would you waste time updating your kitchen? It'd be like wallpapering the Titanic.
Mm-hmm. I remember hearing an illustration like that at one of the public talks about rearranging the furniture on the deck of the Titanic or polishing the brass and all that.
But I think that if a non-witness read that story, they would say, nah, that's ridiculous. Nobody said that thing. That never happened. And I wanted to stop the story in the middle and prove that it did happen. And so that's when I have the proof text about, Russell and Barbara getting together and talking about Armageddon in the 1800s, and then Russell on his own in 1914 and other dates, and then Rutherford in 25 and 35, and Nora in France with the 75 debacle, which I was looking through, and prove that through their own literature that they did this. Now, I know other books have done that more thoroughly, but I thought I owed it to my audience that may not have read those books that, no, we did in fact believe Armageddon was coming any minute. And people stopped having children, they stopped going to college, they stopped doing a lot of things because Armageddon was coming any minute. And my mom was discouraged from even wallpapering her kitchen. So that's an example of where I would show context along with my story. So that leads to my second piece of why it's different, is that it's not just a memoir. I read a lot of XJW memoirs, and I love a lot of them. They tell their whole life in chronological order, and then, hopefully it ends good, and yay, that was great. And those books are great. And there's other books that are topical. They'll attack the Trinity, or they'll attack blood transfusions or whatever. And I think those are awesome too. I try to have it both ways. I wanted to tell my story chronologically, but when I came up to a point of discussion that I wanted to cover, then I got topical. And I covered it in a topical way, like apostasy or, child abuse or anything like that. So I was trying to have it both ways by telling my story as a memoir, but stopping, pausing, and getting topical in some places. So that's what makes Escape much different than Journey to God's House.
It makes sense. Now, I want to share another little snippet. I'd like to kind of whet people's appetite. This was a point that you made in the chapter entitled "The Worst Things in Life Were Free," and you were talking about how your mother was susceptible to the witness message and how loners are easy pickings for the witnesses, basically. And
yes.
and I just want to read this little snippet. You said, My observation taken over the years is that these are the exact type of people who Jehovah's Witnesses are most successful at converting. I know because as I got older and became a good little witness boy myself and began to start my own free home Bible study with others, the people who accepted them were almost always in a similar situation. It was uncommon to see happy, well-adjusted people start studying with the witnesses if they also had tons of family and friends as well as a rich social life with strong church ties. In the rare cases these kinds of people did start studying with us, it was an uphill battle because their friends, family, and church associates would scare them off from the religion. Tough work, that. Better to find the loners and the lonely, the weak or the sick to study with. This is not unlike the method used by a predatory animal, one that picks out the hapless prey who wanders off from the herd. And I tell you what, that was a smoking hot indictment on the Watchtower, which you've got lots of those in here where you really, really rake this cult over the coals. And I like that point because it makes perfect sense.
Well, thank you. I know that at times I may use a lot of metaphor. I really like metaphors, and that's one there in my book school, and I've had that pointed out to me. I can't help it. I like the metaphor, and that's one.
Yeah, it is.
The end set, the metaphor. The rest of the discussion, it's not. But the end is the metaphor.
Now we know what the metaphor is for. So, okay, so hey, I got all these questions. I'm just bursting with questions, Brock. Let me ask you this: what chapters would you think are the most interesting, the most controversial, etc.?
Well, interesting ones that you asked. And I of course, I can't prefer any of them because they're like my children. I'm supposed to love them all. But I think for a non-witness, there's some chapters that will make them go, I can't believe this. It's really what witnesses are about. And one of them is the chapter on the fixation of demons. So the chapter is called Giving the Devil His Due. And I talk about in 1975, the time frame just before that, I forget when it took place. We were worried about some earth falls being demonized and buying garage sale items that would bring home a demon and things like that. I don't see that happening too much among the witness community today, but it was a big deal when I was a kid. And so I talk about that. And I start the story off by saying when I was 14 years old, I had a run-in with a demon. So that was my perspective anyway. And another one that I think is kind of unique to the witness world is persecution. The idea of this persecution complex that we're going to get, tortured during the Great Tribulation. The people in Malawi that were a big story back when I was a kid, and I was always worried that I was going to get caught and tortured and be burnt alive or something like that. So I have a story called Violence and Gold, and it talks about persecution complex with this town. And then there's even another one on anointing. It's kind of a unique thing for witnesses too. There's many that believe, many Christians believe you go to heaven, but only the witnesses believe only a few do. And not only that, most of them are dead, and so there's only a few hanging around called the remnant. These must be really special people then, right?
Yeah.
And I tell the two that I grew up with and what they were like, and you'll find out what that meant to me as a kid. So I think those ones might be interesting to the non-witness, and it brings some chuckles to the ex-witness when they go, yeah, that's exactly right. Now, controversial, I already know that because I'm already getting grief for two particular stories. One is my revisit on sex. So a lot of folks, are still squeamish about talking about sex, and my chapter called Oral Spare and Love and War is about the sexual dysfunction that exists in the Jehovah's Witness faith. It just does. It messes up a lot of people, even married couples. I proved that with my own life and with the life of a couple of my friends that I tell their story about, and again have proof text as to why that happened. So I make an argument about that. I know it's controversial because I've already gotten grief for it because people think I'm obsessed with sex somehow because I talk about it at all. And I just disagree. I think it's an important subject for adults to talk about, especially if it gets messed up by their religion.
I say we talk about it right now. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
All right. Well, but the most, so we'll get to that if you like. The most controversial is probably the one I've gotten grief over recently, where a lady has been a wreck to the society and turned me in, and come and get Rob Talon. It is the one, death may be the easiest way, and that's a chapter on the ways to leave the Jehovah's Witness faith. So I argue that there's only 4 ways, and all of them are bad. Once you're baptized into the faith, there's no easy way to leave. Disfellowshipping, disassociation, fading, or death. That's it. And some choose the latter. They choose the last method because it's easier for them. And the fading one was the one I got in trouble of, because this person thought I was encouraging people to be dishonest and to stick around, and we should just face the music and disassociate ourselves or get this fellowship honestly. And so that can be very controversial, even among the ex-service community at the time.
Well,
so anyway.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it's a non-issue. These are the facts of the matter. We all know that's what we have to do. We know that this Watchtower religion is like the mob, and once you're in, the only way you leave is feet first. So it isn't. Yeah, I mean, this is all good stuff. I think. Especially, for people that are just now starting to learn the truth about the truth, things like this are going to be very instructive. They're going to be very helpful for them. They're going to give them, a lot of good food for thought. I mean, in your last book, now I'm switching gears slightly. In your last book, you had that chapter about the woman with the epic breasts and all that. So, you know what? It's funny, and we're not. We don't have to be prudes anymore. We don't have to be some sort of fake, prim and proper Christian, like we're brought up to be as JWs. When you're at the Kingdom Hall, everybody, acts as if the word fart is a 4-letter word. And then when they're at home watching R-rated movies, they don't tell anybody about. That's another story.
Yeah, well, the one on epic breaths was, that was, a lot of people talked about it, but that was my take on what happened as a teenager when I, was around women. It was like their bodies were talking to me. I couldn't concentrate on what they were saying, and it really does happen. And it did me anyway. I don't know if I'm going to speak for all males, but you just, can't help yourself. And it's just humorous, and they kind of like took a life of their own and had their own personalities. That's what that was about. But that was more tongue-in-cheek and just whimsical. This one is a more serious discussion in this book on sex. Although I have funny passages in it, I think there's a couple of stories that are actually quite hilarious. But the subject itself is not. When you think about people getting their sex life, that's not forever.
Oh, I know, that's for sure. And you know what I mean? Look, I remember one time I was a ministerial servant. It was shortly before they made me an elder. We were getting ready to go into this meeting for all the servants and elders, and my father-in-law goes around handing out this printout, this sheet of paper to all of us as we're filing in to start the meeting. It was before. And it was a printout from the 83 Watchtower talking about how oral sex was perverted, and how if a servant in the congregation was endorsing oral sex, then they could be deleted. And I remember all of us reading this going, okay, why are we, we're all thinking, why are we reading this? And he just felt like making sure that everybody on the servant body knew that it was wrong, and then to have oral sex, So he had a fixation on that, shall we say, and I will save the rest of that story for my own book.
Okay, but don't call it oral smear and love and war.
Or no, I can't do that, or that would be copyright infringement. I don't want to do that.
Yeah, that chapter name is taken, brother.
Yes, it's taken. It's taken. Well, you know what? Hey, now let me ask you this, Brock. You mentioned earlier that you've had a few people giving you grief or complaining about certain parts of the book. I mean, do you really? I mean, I would imagine that the majority of your comments on the book are positive? I mean, do you really have that many negative comments?
No, I don't ever want it to sound like that. By and large, the readers are positive and wonderful and complimentary. If they do offer any kind of criticism that's constructive and meant well, so I love all of that. I don't even care if somebody reads the book and just doesn't like it. It's not their style, or they wanted something different. I'm cool with that. So most of it is positive. But I've used the analogy on Facebook after I got excoriated by one person and name called and threatened. It's like going to a party that's thrown in my honor. There's 50 people there that come up and hug me and give me a handshake and shot me in the back. And then the 51st person walks up and spits in my face and cusses me out. For some reason, it's hard to shake that. You know, it's like, what's that person's problem? It kind of ruins the party for you. And you can try to laugh it off and tell everybody, I don't know what their problem is. But in the back of your mind, it hurts. Mm-hmm. And the thing is I'm a human being, and, you know, I have feelings, and it's not that I wish everybody loves me, but I would like people not to hate me. They could disagree with what I say, but there's no need for name calling. So when it happens, which is rare, it does kind of bum me out. But the XJW community will come to my support if I post on it in Facebook, for example, and say, what is this all about? Am I wrong about this? And then, you know, the community will usually surround people well and everything. So I'd like to shout out to them and thank my readers and for those that have been supportive. I really appreciate it. And by and large, my experience is positive.
I couldn't agree more, and I'm sure that it is. And, you know, my response, if somebody complained to me about this video or about endorsing, you know, Brock Talon's book, Escape from Paradise, I would say, and if they want to complain about it, I'd say, well, let me read your book, and then I'll get back to you. Right? You know, it's easy for people to sit back and slam their fingers away on their keyboard and like you said, excoriate someone. But you know, most of these people, like I get these haters on YouTube, and they, you know, your video was boring, it was too long. Well, they got nothing on their YouTube channel. They've never made a video before. So you know what? If you don't like it, then don't watch it. Don't read it. Whatever.
Yeah.
You know? So shoot.
Yeah.
Okay, now here's another little snippet, something that I had marked with a sticky note because I really liked it. And that was the chapter, A Network Marketing Malaise. Lots of great words in here. And here in this chapter, you equate these multi-level marketing plans with the way the witnesses work. And again, that was something that I immediately saw the similarities. I got wrapped up in a network marketing deal years ago, tried it out, and I hated it. You know, I hated it. You're hitting up your friends, hitting up your family, trying to sell, you know, to sign up every person you meet. And here you have this little, you know, you talk about this fella, he approaches you, he's got this great idea, he recruits you into it, and then you say in the book, this is what, page 177, says, the recruitment technique that he used on me that day was not all that different from the field ministry approach used by Jehovah's Witnesses. They are taught to strike up conversations about the kingdom of God anywhere and everywhere. This is called incidental witnessing. Rather than offer financial freedom and wealth, Jehovah's Witnesses offer a new system of things in a fabulous earthly paradise where everyone will stay young forever. And then on top of that, I might add that they want to sign you up, and then they count you. If they get somebody to come in and get baptized, then they count that person as a feather in their cap or a letter of recommendation to God. So once again, they're improving their downline when they get somebody to come into this religion, and then if that person brings in somebody else, they start referring to you as grandfather, the grandfather, or whatever. You remember that? So yeah.
I do, and, yeah, that really happened to me too, and it was weird. While I was trying to be a Jehovah's Witness, I was kind of weak and stayed, you know, stumbling around, and then trying to be a network marketing guy, and it struck me even then just how similar they were. You know, they sequester people and keep you from the people that don't understand what you're doing. You know, they're being negative, so you should make friends with only your upline and downline, and on and on. But in the end, I make the argument that Jehovah's Witnesses, the Watchtower Bible tract said, is the greatest one of all time because of the efficacy of how they work. They get you to work for free to buy all their literature up. Most JWSs consume their own product. They buy their own the society's literature. I would argue that they buy more literature than the non-JWSs.
Yeah, it's true. And, one of the largest network marketing companies in the world is Amway. And Amway has been called a cult by not by ex-JWs, by other people, because the people get so wrapped up in this thing that it becomes almost like a religion to them. So
yeah, their personalities will change. You'll see people that you knew become network marketing, and they're different people.
Yeah, it's true. So I'm wondering then, if you were going to if you wanted to your readers to take away something from reading this new book, what would it be? What would you want them to take away?
Well, when I was writing it, I was thinking about all the potential readers and what the audience would be, and primarily I was thinking about the non-witness. I had this fantasy that more non-witnesses would read it than ex-witnesses, because ex-witnesses seem to be the consumer of Journey to God's House. I had a few non-witnesses, but mostly for ex-witnesses. I wanted to write a book that the non-witness would read, and their takeaway would be to have some empathy and understanding for what the ex-JW is going through, so that they didn't have some mercy on us because we acted a little weird from time to time, or we were awkward and didn't know what to do, especially when we first leave. And maybe even have a little empathy for the current JW, because I believe most of them are victims themselves. Not all of them, but most of them are. And, so that the non-witness can understand that whole world a little bit better. But, I did think about the current JW who's looking, who's unhappy, who want an excuse to leave, and maybe the strength to do it. And I was hoping that they would take away a lot of the points that you've been shared and more, that, this is wrong. I don't need to be here. And they would get the strength to be able to leave. But the biggest audience that I probably will get are the people who I wrote the book in honor of, which is the ex-JW, like myself and yourself. I wrote for them to bring them comfort, to let them know that they were alone, to have them realize that my story isn't any different really than theirs. There's some details that are different, but not the overarching story. And that they can have a happy ending, just like Talon had a happy ending.
You know what? How could you disagree with that? And that kind of makes me think of one of the last things I wanted to share in the book that I liked was your chapter on firsts. You had your first cigar, your first time that you voted, the first time you got involved with politics and a city council thing, the first holidays, the first birthday. And that, for me personally, that was one of the most exciting things about getting out of the witness mindset and gaining real freedom, gaining real normalcy, was being able to have those firsts. And that was a very fun chapter for me to read.
Cool, thank you. It was fun to write, and I'm hoping again that those audiences will enjoy it as much.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like the cover design. It's just a fun thing to be able to read all these different stories and get kind of confirmation, affirmation that we are not the crazy one. We've been told that we'll go into darkness if we don't read the Watchtower and don't go to Kingdom Hall, and then we read all these stories, we hear all these great experiences of people that are thriving, of people that are doing well. And then how do you end your book? I liked the happy note that you ended on too.
Yeah, it's a bit of a metaphor again. The entire chapter is a metaphor. It's called The Recovering Watchtowerholic, and the setting is some sort of Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. But in there, I've gathered all the people that are there supporting me now, kind of in a pretend scenario, helping me to, continue my healing. And in a way, I'm admitting, just like some who have drug addiction or alcohol addiction, they never really truly get over it. It's something they have to battle forever. that may be a lot of us ex-Jehovah's Witnesses. We have the battle of indoctrination and the scar that we got from being in the religion. But you know what? You can go on and live a happy, productive life yourself.
Well, that's for sure. And I was also thinking, in my mind, the little Watchtower Holic was a funny little prologue. I was actually referring to how you have this beautiful marriage at the end, and you find a woman that has never been a JW, that teaches you to enjoy and to embrace all these fun things and harmless things that society enjoys, and that I like that a lot too. Yeah, so that was my take on it, anyways.
Well, I just want to add, I do feel that my happy ending was a little bit of luck, finding the right person, but I had to prepare myself to know what I wanted and who would be good for me, so I could identify her when I found her. And I just feel very fortunate and blessed to find the right person to support me. And she helped me with both of my books. She heard every story. But when I said at the beginning that there were some stories I didn't tell anybody, even some of the stories in this book were heard when she first read them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's how deeply entrenched they were in my psyche. That's how much I had repressed them, and I finally just let them out.
Yep, and that whole topic of marriage and the whole topic of finding the right person, among the Jehovah's Witness religion, because it's so insular, I think there's a lot of mismatches. There's a lot of unhappy marriages because people are stuck. You can never get out. You can never find happiness, and you have this teeny tiny little pool to choose from of potential people. And then all of a sudden, when you get out, you realize there's plenty of fish in the sea. There's lots of great people out there that we don't have to limit ourselves to just the 3 or 4 guys wearing pants in our congregation if we're a woman, or the handful of girls that are walking around and around and around the circuit assembly that we bump into. So it's just nice to have, and to be able to pursue those things, or even online dating, which is a huge deal. And there's millions of people that have met their spouse that way. It's still demonized by Watchtower, but now we know, these things are not the boogeyman, and escaping from this fake paradise is a good title, for the book.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah, you got it. I knew that you would, though.
Oh yeah, I get it.
If anybody would, I knew that you would. Someone that wanted me to change the title of the book, Escape from the Fake Paradise, or,
Yes.
And it's like, the title is ironic. It's meant to be ironic.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a paradise. In fact, that's why the very first quote in my book is, what does it say here? It's Talon's store, a false paradise is a wise man's hell. I lead with that because that's what you're going to be reading about, the false paradise. But, the title is meant to be ironic, and I'm hoping people will get that.
Yeah. Well, I hope that this will turn more viewers on to your book. There's a lot of ex-JWs out there, and there's a lot of folks that have left the religion, but they really haven't investigated yet, and hopefully they'll start investigating, and things like this will whet their appetite, get them reading more stories that will help them to clean out that ignorant Watchtower mindset out of their head, and clean it out, and then leave more room for the finer and the better things in life, like smoking a cigar once in a while, I might add.
Right. You're talking about the funk and junk?
The funk and the junk. Yes. I have to write that one down. I like that. Well, hey, Brock, thank you very much for giving us a rundown of your new book and for talking with us.
And thank you for having me, Eric. Again, it's a pleasure being with you. I miss your face. You're one of the few actually W's I've actually met in person. So I had a great time with you and Gregorio in San Francisco that time.
That's right.
I do that a lot because I remain the mysterious dark Talon. I'm very private. Normally, I just want to say that in the end, it's blown my mind that I wrote all these things about my life in the world because I'm a very private person by nature. So it's a big deal for me to have somebody like you that I can trust.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, that was a really cool day. It was a great lunch. Oh my God, that sushi we had was good too.
Yeah, it was.
I know. I'm thinking about the sushi. Well, for me, it's close to dinner time now. I know it's a little later in the day for you, but in my time zone, I'm ready to eat.
Okay. Well, it was great having you. I'm a little hungry too.
All right. Hey, take care, my friend. We'll talk to you again.
Thanks, Eric.
The order is rapidly fading, for the times they are a-changing.